Well, pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the Ballfather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL communications executive, and today we're joined by our Tampa correspondent, our man about town, TJ Rives. What's up, my man?
Hey, listen, it's always good when you put the bat signal up for me. It is a crazy time because it's like end of the school year time, and I've got the teenage twins, and I'm like a teenage twin Uber right now because they don't drive on the exam schedule. But I always have time for the PR man and the coach and the Ballfather podcast here. So whatever you need from me, Tampa Bay related or otherwise, I'm here for you.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate you when you saw the bat sign. I really appreciate reaching back out. We're kind of in the dog days of summer and things are going on. But I'm always curious what's going on with my second home in Tampa. And so this morning I was kind of getting ready, just kind of waking up, and I woke up and I said, "Hey Siri," I said, what happened with the Rays last night?
I know what's coming here. I know what's coming.
And Siri said the Rays were pummeled last night by the Blue Jays, 20-1.
20-1. I mean, it's one thing to get beat like 8-1 or 10-1. Now but honestly, Double R, this is the best team in baseball the first 7 weeks of the season. This was completely unexpected and it's a game out of 162 games. Right. It's like one meal out of a month. In my case. So it was bad in the short-term sample. It got so bad that they were pitching an infielder. They were deciding not to waste any more relief pitching. They were pitching an infielder. How fast do you think you could throw a baseball? Right now, we're both contemporaries. We're both in our 50s. Do you think you could throw a 60-mile-an-hour pitch? I think I could throw a 60-mile-an-hour pitch.
Possibly. Really? Wow.
Possibly. Wow. Okay. I'm not saying 80, much less 90. I could probably throw a 50, 60 mile an hour, maybe. So they had an infielder trying to throw 45, 50 miles an hour, throwing off-speed stuff. And for like the first couple of batters, he was doing okay. And then it was batting practice, Double R. They shelled him for like 7 or 8 runs after that, including Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Yes, we're old enough that Vlad Guerrero's son is now hitting grand slams in the big leagues. Vlad Jr. hit a ball that I think came down about 10 minutes ago, went into orbit. Wow. So that's how the Blue Jays got to 20 runs. But look, this has been a fantastic start to the season for the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't know how it ends up. Maybe they continue to flounder some here and there, and they end up just being an ordinary team. But, I mean, to get off to a 13-0 start, to be 30-10 through the first 40 games, I mean, they got off to a great start to at least give them some cushion and have some relevance in what is a really tough division with your Yankees, the Red Sox. The Orioles are actually better this year, and the Blue Jays. It's a really tough division in baseball, and the Rays are at least hanging in.
It really is. Well, anytime the Rays and Yanks play, it's always a good game. The Rays took 3 or 4 up in New York last week, which is gigantic. It's a blip on the screen. They're playing really well. But now I do see the storm clouds on the horizon for your Rays based on all the arms they got hurt. I mean,
that's true.
They got some major guys who are severely
half of the look. We don't have to go over all the names. Half their relief pitchers are already on the injured list or just coming off the injured list. I mean, they literally have had like 6 relievers that have been injured during this whole streak where they're doing. So that's going to catch up to you. This just into the newsroom. One of the essential keys to winning baseball games is getting people out. And they have had trouble getting people out like after the 6th or 7th inning with relief pitching right now. It has become a problem. It's like we talk about in basketball terms. It's great that you can score 110, but if you give up 127, you're going to lose. You got to play some defense at some point. So they've been a fun story. They've been leading the major leagues at home runs. I mean, you got all these teams, New York, Red Sox, Dodgers, Braves, whomever, the team that has been leading Major League Baseball the whole year in home runs. And for a little while, it was by like 15 home runs. Right. The margin over everybody else is the Tampa Bay Rays. Will that sustain? More than likely that will not sustain. They're gonna probably regress some, come back to the pack.
I saw something in the news the other day when the owner was in the news talking about building a new ballpark, and you hear it every now and again. It pops up. I'm going to build a new ballpark. But the one thing that I thought was really interesting was he said, I'm going to be the owner. I'm not going to sell the club. I'm going to be the owner. What do you make of that?
Well, and again, Stu Sternberg has been the owner here for over 15 years. He's a New York guy. He's a former Wall Street guy. That really he salvaged this situation and pumped money into it, and they put a better winning product on the field within his first couple of years. But this area has so soured on the whole stadium debate. I mean, Reggie, you were in this market in the late 90s and the 2000s, and the Rays were squawking about, we need another stadium. Get out of downtown St. Pete. Brother, it ain't changed. In 20 years, they're still squawking about different stadium out of downtown St. Pete, somewhere else in either St. Pete or Clearwater across the bay, or in Hillsborough in Tampa, where the Buccaneers and where the Lightning play. And I continue to say this to everybody, having lived in this area now for 40 years. I moved to the Tampa Bay area in 1983 when there were no Tampa Bay Rays baseball. There was no Tampa Bay Lightning hockey. So I've seen this whole thing kind of develop beyond just the Buccaneers. Tampa supports the NHL. Yes, they win, but they support the National Hockey League to the tune of $19,000 a night. $19,000 is a sellout per game. There are 1/3, if not 1/4, the hockey fans in this area that are baseball fans. The baseball fans are 3 times as much, if not 4 times as much, because of spring training being in the area. The Rays have now taken a foothold for 25 years, 27 years, whatever it is, of playing games. The Yankees have trained here in spring training for the better part of 25 plus years. This is a baseball region. And to think that if the stadium's in Tampa and you're not going to get 20,000 to come see the games, which is all you basically need to be respectable, what planet are you on? The hockey team draws 20,000 double R. So let's see if they can get it solved. Let's see if the owner wants to get it solved. There's a lot of different conversation about would he sell it if he could get enough and get the right price and somebody else builds the stadium. Will he do what's necessary to get the stadium built? We're going to find out soon enough in the next year or two.
You're on with the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the Ballfather podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Let's talk about your football team. You know, I've said on this podcast, and I said it right when he signed there. I really like Baker Mayfield. I liked him coming out of college. I like his toughness. Guys who cover him say he's a little bit of he's arrogant and he's not a really good teammate. Guys who are in the locker room that I know who've played with him say he's as tough as they come. He's a little bit misunderstood. He's a quarterback, so he's a little bit of a diva. You know, it's early. Okay, Todd Bowles said today he's not. You know, he said yesterday that guys are running around in shorts and t-shirts, and he's not going to crown anybody. He's not going to beat up anybody.
Amen to that.
But I think this. You know, I think if you like my son says, he says, Dad, you got to look at the context clues. If you look at the context clues, opening day, I think Baker Mayfield opens as a Bucs starter.
Well, that's the intent, because obviously he's a former number 1 overall pick. He led the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs, which is not an easy accomplishment, as bad as they've been. So if obviously when they make this signing, you want him to win the job, but therein is the key part of the phrase: win the job in training camp and in preseason games. The other guy is Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask, a 2nd-round pick out of the University of Florida. So that's a popular pick among this region of fans and the legions of Florida Gator fans. They want to see Trask get the chance. And look, I have no allegiance to the University of Florida. You know this about me because you were around me for years. I'm a Memphis Tiger. Me and Elvis and Penny Hardaway. I'm all about Memphis. So I have no allegiance to the University of Florida, to Florida State University, to the University of Miami and the Canes. I mean, I tried to stay out of the fray when you had that whole thing working with Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and Jaquez Green and Riedel Anthony. These were all Florida, Miami, Florida State players. I tried to stay out of the fray of that. I have no allegiance to any of them. So it's not a Gator thing. It's me saying, give Kyle Trask the chance at an open competition with Baker Mayfield, and let's see who wins the job. Clearly, they believe that Mayfield will win that job. And one more factor, which I believe we've talked about on your show before, but for the audience that's hearing us here, is the Bucs have a first-time offensive coordinator, a guy named Dave Canales, who worked with the Seattle Seahawks last year. He's a first-time offensive coordinator, but he's done a tremendous job as a quarterback coach a couple of places, including in Seattle, working with some guy named Geno Smith last year in Seattle. So to think that Canales can't come in and work with Baker Mayfield who's now on team number 4 already. This is his 6th year coming up in the NFL. He's on team number 4, by the way. So let's see. Let's see how that plays out. But yeah, Mayfield was saying the right things early in this week in and around the Buccaneer practices, the OTAs, right, Reggie, the voluntary practices. We have voluntary for those, voluntary that those that want to make the team and want to start and want to play. It's voluntary for them to be in.
Try not showing up, see how that works for you.
Especially if you're a player that's just trying to make the team or start on the team. We'll find out how voluntary, air quotes, that really is.
But just one other note on Canales, okay? The word on the street on him is, really, really cerebral, really smart. Geno Smith, player of the year, comeback player of the year, and he parlayed that to a 3-year contract that's worth $90 gazillion. So he knows what he's doing, and if Mayfield, plays his cards right, he could sign a long-term contract with the Bucs.
And that's what he wants. I mean, he is betting on himself. Short-term, 1-year deal, and in quarterback money, this is minimum money. He got a $4 million guarantee. We would all take that. We would all take that right now. But that's not 25 or 30 million, which is the going rate per season for the elite quarterbacks. So Baker Mayfield is clearly betting on himself that I can come to Tampa on a 1-year, $4 million of guarantee. There's some incentives. He could make more. But if I play really well, I could be looking at 100, 150, $200 million from the Buccaneers, because that's the going rate for a long-term contract for a starting quarterback. Kyle Trask is looking at the same thing, but you're right. That's the carrot that's out there.
That's the carrot that's out there. The other thing that's a little concerning about the Bucs, from a depth perspective, there seems to be sort of a misnomer in there. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't live there. You do. There seems to be a perception in the media that they didn't do anything this offseason. They didn't add anybody. They didn't go after anybody, and they're bringing back the same cast for an 8-9 team that barely made the playoffs and got blown out in the first round by the Cowboys. What's your thought on that?
Well, first of all, you got to have money to spend. And the Buccaneers were way over the cap and had to say goodbye to their starting left tackle, a Pro Bowl left tackle who did not have a good 2022, but they cut Donovan Smith outright. They cut Leonard Fournette outright, who has been a solid running back, not spectacular, but a solid running back on the Super Bowl team and the playoff teams. Had to say goodbye to him, had to say goodbye to a money kicker in Ryan Suckup. Now, they may bring Suckup back, but he had a $4+ million price tag. So they had to cut those guys, Reggie, outright just to get under the salary cap to be able to operate and work some deals out. They did not make really a big splash free agent move. They did go and get a couple of people in the draft that can probably help them. And you're really in probably a 2-year process of get younger through the draft, get under the salary cap, be ready next year for free agency and for, again, another draft that comes around to reload your team. Now, that being said, I mean, this team with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at wide receiver, those guys start for any team in the NFL. You agree with me on that? They start for every team in the NFL. I don't care who it is. And you've got a couple of players as well on defense in Vita Vea, the big defensive tackle, and Levante David. While he's aging, he is still a phenomenal linebacker. I believe those guys would start on any team in the NFL. You've got a core of 4 or 5 guys that you can really build around. And now what your hope is with some of the younger talent around that they're able to succeed. Again, the Bucs just did not have big money to go and spend on free agents on that point.
Well, one other side note. Congratulations to your coach who, after 39 years, got his degree. That was gigantic. I saw that. I was pumped.
So this is just to elaborate on the story. Todd Bowles, the Buccaneers coach, who was the former defensive coordinator, elevated to the head coach last year, former coach of the Jets. He played in college at Temple University for Bruce Arians. That's where the two of them began their relationship. And Bruce said he knew right away, whenever Todd's playing career is over, he's going to be a coach. And Bowles ended up playing a few years himself in the National Football League with the Redskins, now the Commanders, or whatever name they're going to be this year, next year, and a year from now. But in any event, Bowles had made a promise to his mother that I will get my degree. Now, unfortunately, it probably took him a lot longer than he would have liked, but welcome to the coaching grind, which that takes a lot out of you month after month and season after season. But he eventually has gone and gotten enough credits online and with the different classes he's taken over the last couple of years to finish that off. And what a moment that I believe it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago. He walked across the stage and got the diploma that he promised his mother almost 40 years ago. I will go get my degree. I will follow through. And he did that. And that's a great example, not just in sports, but in life, that if something becomes important enough to you to finish off and accomplish, you can get it done. And he went and got it done. It was important to him to follow through on that promise and say, I got my degree that I promised my mother that I would get.
I was really impressed with that. But we had a couple other guys graduate this offseason. Jalen Hurts got his master's degree from Oklahoma, and then the quarterback for the Bears, Justin Fields, he graduated from Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I was always very, very impressed with that, because one of the things that we pushed our guys, both not only in Tampa when I was there, but in Atlanta, Mr. Blank says, I'll pay for it. I will pay for you to go back and finish your degree. It's important. And some guys took advantage of it. A lot of guys did, but I'm really happy for those guys.
Let me give you another example. Bring it back to Memphis and brag on my own school. When John Calipari was there, and there were slings and arrows. He was criticized for a lot of different things, but he established, because he really began the whole one and done college basketball thing, not just at Memphis, but later at Kentucky. This is what he's become. But Calipari started doing this at Memphis, and obviously Kentucky has a bigger war chest of money, SEC money, etc. But Calipari made the pledge himself to his players. I want you to get your degree, and I will help you pay for schooling and to get your degree here at Memphis. As long as you want to follow through and come back to the university and get your degree, I will see to it. John Calipari, through my own money and my own way of funding it, I will see to it that if you don't have the money, you will get your degree. And that was kind of a wow thing for families back in the mid 2000s, the late 2000s, when he was offering that before he eventually took the Kentucky job. And that is still and there are still players that took advantage of that in the 2010s and the late 2010s, that even 10 years after they had played at Memphis, Reggie, were coming back because Calipari set the program up and was even funding a large part of it, fundraising and funding it, saying, if you want to get your degree, I will make sure you get your degree. So bravo, good on them on that point.
Let me tell you one thing. Not only are you've been friends for a long time, but you are a wealth of information on every topic that we talk about. I try. Let me give you this. Calipari is probably my favorite college coach for a lot of reasons, but I've followed his career since he was at UMass, and when he went to Memphis, and now Kentucky. And there was a thing, one of those nights when couldn't sleep, and I was watching TV, and it was one of those ESPNU shows where it said, since he's been a college coach, the number of NBA salary, NBA bonuses, endorsements, the number that his players have earned is somewhere reaching. It said it's now reaching close to $3 billion.
$3 billion with a B. $3 billion. Yes.
And think about it. When you think about it, okay, think about that for a second. Think of some of the guys he's coached. Okay, John Wall.
Correct.
The guy who's a star for the Phoenix Suns. What's his name? Devin Booker.
Correct. The Kentucky roll call, we could sit here for another 10 minutes, but you go back to Derrick Rose at Memphis. You even go back to Marcus Camby at UMass, who was a big-time NBA multi-million star. But I mean, the Kentucky roll call has Karl Anthony Towns. It has Anthony Davis of the Lakers, and on and on. I'm actually $3 billion. I'm actually surprised it maybe is not more, with the hundreds of millions of dollars the NBA players now make in salary. But it's incredible what his 25 plus years have produced in terms of NBA talent, no doubt.
But he gets on and he goes, this has nothing to do with me. He goes, I'm about changing the direction of people's lives with this.
Sure.
I'm trying to change generations who grew up in poverty and for the most part, let's just call it what it is. Okay. They're brown guys. They're brown guys that look like me. Okay. And guys who come from nothing, and he's setting them up, paying for their degree. He gets criticized for a lot of stuff. I'm a Calipari fan like you.
And just one more, because I know you want to move on and then we got to run, is he has said this consistently, even at Kentucky, because the last couple of years, his teams have not been elite and he hasn't really had the one and done superstar, but he will say this to anybody. He would say this if we were sitting right here, that he will go into the home of a star player that thinks, I'm a lottery pick right now. And he will say, You may very well be a lottery pick. You may not be a lottery pick. But the one thing I'm going to be with you is honest. And I'm going to be honest with your family. And I'm going to say to you at some point, maybe several times, you aren't good enough right now to be an NBA first round pick. You aren't even good enough to be in the NBA. And you better be thinking about whether you're going to play overseas for less money or play in another league for less money. And you better be thinking about your degree. And what happens when you're 28? And what happens when you're 32? I'm paraphrasing here. What happens when you're 34? What are you doing for a living in this? He will say that in the home, that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you're an NBA player, but you got to hold up your end that you may not be an NBA player. You may not be a first round pick. You may not be contributing to those billions with a B. And then what are you going to do? And he's had to do that, I'm sure, with a lot of different players that thought, hey, I've watched all these Calipari guys go to the NBA. I can be one of those. And it's not everybody. In fact, it's a rare percentage of who that is that ends up making it big in the NBA. So there you go.
All right, finishing up with the PR man, the coach on the Ballfather podcast, presented by Sports Key. Just wanted to get your take on this last thing. I don't know if you saw this Roethlisberger thing and Kenny Pickett. Did you see that?
You alerted me to something about that. So is Roethlisberger propping him up, or is Roethlisberger concerned? Because that would carry a lot of weight if Roethlisberger's concerned.
I thought he would have gotten killed. Let me tell you what the story is. Roethlisberger has a podcast. He had Kenny Pickett on the podcast this week, and on the podcast he admitted, I really was rooting against you. I really was rooting against you when you first got there because, I was a two-time Super Bowl champion there, 6-time Pro Bowler. I really didn't want you to do as well as I did initially because I didn't want my legacy tarnished. He goes, but once you guys kind of turned around and you started winning, I started cheering for you. I was so taken aback by that for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You've cemented your legacy. You played tough. You played hurt. You led you won the silver trophy twice. You're a mythical god in Pittsburgh. You'll never buy another meal or buy a drink in Pittsburgh for the rest of your life.
So do you read that? I mean, you've been around these players closely, more so than I have, and I've been around them closely. Do you read that as like immaturity on Roethlisberger's part, insecurity? What do you read it as?
All that. I read insecurity. I read immaturity. And, I thought he would have gotten pummeled by national media. Some people took some shots at him, but I thought it would have been way, way more than it's been. But then he kind of backtracked. He kind of backtracked and said, but now, I cheer for you. And according to Pickett, they've got a relationship. They've got each other's phone numbers. They talk during the week. He kind of leans on him as a resource. And Pickett said all the right things. Pickett said, I get it. He goes, I get it. The guy played good, and I understand it. I didn't understand it because
I don't know. And look, we're talking about being able to let go and move on with the rest of your life, and you're right. I mean, he's got a Hall of Fame legacy in Pittsburgh, Big Ben. I was thinking when you were saying this, Brett Favre had a real hard time with Aaron Rodgers being there, and he even had the attitude, it's not my job to get Aaron Rodgers prepared to take my job. And he was paraphrasing. He was basically right on that point. But now if you're talking about after your career, that you're not wanting somebody for the team that you played for to succeed, the team that you're forever intertwined with, especially Pickett's a Pittsburgh guy. He is a Pittsburgh collegiate player. So it's a great interest story in that area. So, but sometimes it's tough for these guys for insecurity reasons, selfish reasons, or whatever, to accept that somebody else could do it or do it as well as you or do it better than you. But I mean, it would take Kenny Pickett 10 years at least to do the stuff that Roethlisberger accomplished. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Last thing. Okay. I kind of thought we'd be on talking about introducing the Nuggets and the Heat in the NBA Finals. Boston said not so fast last night.
Right. It's close. It's close to being the Nuggets and the Heat. Right.
Do you think they do the impossible or no way?
No, there's no way the Celtics are going to win 4 in a row. Now, they may get game 5 and make it interesting to come back to Miami. Yeah. But we'll see. Denver, look, the Lakers with LeBron would have been ideal for the NBA. They're never going to admit that. You know that. But Denver, it's the first time there. And Jokic is a phenomenal big man talent, and they're going to be jacked. So this will be interesting. The ratings may take a hit, but it will be interesting. And anything can happen in the playoffs. Anything can happen in the playoffs. And this is proof of it again. I mean, Miami was in the play-in round, and they may be about to be in the NBA Finals. Yeah. So we love that too.
We'll leave it there. But don't want you to be late to go pick up the hotties. I don't want to freeze on
I know, and you still call them the hotties, and I love that because when
Absolutely.
they were very little, we called them the twin hotties, and they were when they were little bitty blondes. All right, so yes, the exam schedule is good. We've got NFL before we know it. We got the baseball. We got my Rays, your Yankees. I always love being on with you on the PR man and the coach here.
12 of our last 15, red hot.
I know the Yankees are playing better. Why do I get a feeling I'll get more text messages and communication from you about the baseball this summer? I think I will. You have me back on anytime you want, my friend.
All right, brother. Have a good one. Thank you. See you, man.